So, live audience, real people, not making this stuff up. And presentation time.
You're live and go.
Hello everyone, my name is Jonathan Harvey, and I am a self-professed Whovian. I'm going to be giving you a wonderful presentation today on the merits of the TV show Doctor Who, as well as its cultural impact and some behind-the-scenes info. I have seen nearly every episode of the original series, at least all the ones that are still around. I have also watched every single episode of the new series, and I actually tend to get really involved in a lot of the off-spins and a couple different other collecting items, such as the TARDIS and some other wonderful side effects that I've collected. So without further ado, let's introduce our audience and we'll get started. So first participant here is Mr. James Dunlop. James, who unlocked the Stargate for the United States Air Force?
Daniel Jackson.
Awesome. So 2 for 2. What does that symbol on the far right mean?
Earth.
What series is that from?
Stargate.
Okay, as you can see, the audience is clearly a science fiction oriented audience. So let's see if we can go 2 for 2. Mr. James Dock, have you seen every episode of at least one Star Trek series?
Yes.
Awesome. What Star Trek series have you seen?
I have seen every episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine and Star Trek Enterprise, and the last 3 seasons and part of the 4th season for Star Trek Voyager.
How about that Star Trek Voyager?
I prefer Deep Space Nine.
All right. At least he's honest. All right. Next we have Mr. Casey Burek, who flew in all the way from Pennsylvania
Casey Joe
to join us today. Excuse me, Casey Joe Burek.
Thank you.
All right. Now, Mr. Casey Joe Burek, how many doctors on the television show Doctor Who have there been?
11.
Awesome. And next up we have Miss Catherine Tate, I guess. And so Miss Catherine, can you tell us, if you were the doctor, what is the one thing you would never use?
A gun.
Very good. You would also never use a Hewlett-Packard, but there you go. Now, Mr. Colby Calverthwaite, if I were to give you the phrase time blank relative blank blank space, and you were thinking about Doctor Who, what would that mean? No clue?
I'm going to be frank with you.
Give it the best guess.
I don't know the first thing about sci-fi.
It's cool.
So I'm going to say
Hmm.
time is space and money.
Time and space and money? It's very close. However, it actually stands for time and relative dimensions in space. No money involved, I'm sorry. Alright, now let's see. For me, I can in fact name 4 incarnations of the Doctor. Peter Davison, Tom Baker, Christopher Eccleston, and Matt Smith. Spreading over several years, about 20 I think, right there. And I think that's enough getting involved. We'll have more time for some discussion at the end of this presentation. So let's move on to the actual Doctor Who. So first up here, I'd like to give you a taste of the actual television show itself. These are several of the introductions over the past 40 years. The one on the right with the lightning and thunderstorms is the most recent version with the current Dr. Matt Smith. The one on the left actually contains 6 different doctors spanning on its own 30 years. And it's doctors number 4 through 9. And also some of 10, because they tend to reuse the same intro. So as it says here, we're going to go on a journey through space and time, and just about everywhere else, at least in this department. So let's take a look here at who exactly is Doctor Who. Doctor Who is a Time Lord, and believe it or not, every single one of those people in that picture is the same person. Different actors, granted, but each one of those gentlemen took turns playing in the same role. Each put their own spin on it, and of course, you know the titular name of this character. Anyone have a guess as to who the title character of Doctor Who is?
The Doctor.
Very good. It is not Doctor Who, as a lot of people who have never seen the show think. It is the Doctor. The in-joke of the series is, I'm the Doctor. Doctor? Doctor Who. Ha ha. Hysterical. Yes, Colby?
Man number 2, is he playing a flute?
He is actually playing a recorder. You know, cheap 6th grade instrument that everyone had to play. Yes. We will get to more about him later. Next up, let's take a look at all the names of the Doctor here. Just real quick, we'll go in depth later. First up, we had William Hartnell. followed by Patrick Troughton, the flute player. Then John Birchwey, Tom Baker, Peter Davison, recorder, yes. Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, Paul McGann, Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant, and most popular to date, Matt Smith. So let's talk about what drives the plot here. Each different sci-fi show has a different usual mode of transportation or some kind of inanimate object that tends to gain a lot of respect. For example, Star Trek has the Enterprise, and there you can see almost every different incarnation, with the exception of the most recent movie that has come out. People love that ship, let me tell you. Star Wars has a Millennium Falcon, among others, the Death Star being the notable evil. And Doctor Who has what is known as the TARDIS. And I know it sounds kind of like a weird name, and the noise you're hearing right now is actually the TARDIS landing to set up a new story for the day's episode. And that sound is actually the sound of a key scraping across the piano baseboard. So if you want to take your house key and lift up the piano and start scraping, that was what you would hear, theoretically speaking. And yes, in fact, the TARDIS would dematerialize and rematerialize anywhere it went, time and space, and allowed the plot to have a lot of infinite variations. Too bad the budget wasn't that big. Here we have a clip.
What noise? It's not supposed to make that noise. You leave the brakes on.
Yeah. Well, it's a brilliant noise. I love that noise.
I do too, actually.
Coming off the pond.
And that noise is actually been listed as able to give chills to just about any fan of the show. Apparently it's one of the most widely recognized noises in Britain, right behind the sound of a pumped shotgun. So what that tells you about Britain, I do not know. I will leave you to draw your own conclusions. Doctor Who is currently the world's longest running television show, although I believe The Simpsons is a close runner-up. And while Doctor Who does in fact have 212 episodes and 17 days worth of airtime, Star Trek actually comes in longer at airtime if you take the entire franchise together at 23 days. So if you watched every single episode back to back to back, it would take you 23 days. Who has time for that? I do not know. Shows spanned pretty much every format you can conceive. We've got the old black and white cheesy on sets. We've got the more modern productions that have tons of special effects, and just about everything in between. The end joke was, first 3 Doctors, every villain was made of tin foil, which if we had any left, we could prove to you. So Doctor 1, William Hartnell, he played the original title of the show. He was actually originally billed as Doctor Who. That name would not change over until the 3rd Doctor. He was also one of the more controversial ones, not the most. He was plagued by tons of trouble between fellow actors and the studio professionals because he had a lot of problems both mentally and being able to remember everything. So he would get really flustered and frustrated on stage, and as a result it led to him eventually being ousted from the show and replaced by a different actor. Later on this would be attributed to a degenerative memory loss similar to amnesia, but very short term. He actually died just a few years after leaving Doctor Who. Unable to come back, he was replaced later when they would do multiple Doctor specials. This is his final farewell, and it was not scripted.
Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no regrets, no tears, no anxiety. Just go forward in all your